Okay, so welcome to the node.js Diagnostic Working Group meeting, March 24th, 2021. To start with, are there any announcements? I take it as a no and move on to the regular agenda. The first one on the list is 36394, which is async hooks use new V8 context promise hook API. Stephen?
Yeah, so I've been working on that more, just doing like final cleanup stuff. V8 folks keep asking for more little changes. It sounds like it's finally basically done now. So we'll see what their next response is. And once the V8 change lands, then we can backport that into Node, and then I can update the Node PR that I have.
Mm-hmm. So basically what you're saying is waiting for the V8 to update its feature so that you can cherry pick in Node.js.
And just waiting for review of my changes to V8.
Okay. So I guess we can continue tracking this in this meeting.
Yeah, it should hopefully be done by the next meeting.
Okay.
We'll
So
see.
let's keep it then. I mean, if it is something which will get executed in a reasonable time frame, then it's worthwhile to keep it so that we can track the progress. Yeah. So the next one in the list is item number 437, which is identify async hooks use cases beyond async local storage.
Yeah, I still need to get around to writing a blog post for that. Just been a bit chaotic recently. Should hopefully have time this week though.
Okay. Michael, I don't see the item which you are putting in the minutes. That is report idle time correctly. Do you mean to have a discussion around that?
That was in the minute. I didn't add that.
I just put that in.
I can't see it in the issue number 471 for whatever reason. But
I just opened it like yesterday.
Okay.
It was opened after the issue was created.
Basically. Okay, sure.
Yeah, that's just. I'd like to get some people looking at that. It's fixing the CPU profiler doesn't correctly report idle time. This is actually like restoring some old functionality that was removed. It was incomplete.
So what does it report as non-idle that should be idle?
So basically, the change, well, before it had like between the prepare and check phases of libuv, it would set idle to true. which is mostly true other than in the IO phase, any callbacks that happen should be idle false. And so before it didn't do anything about callbacks, so the functionality was removed. So I've restored all of that, and then it's like literally 2 lines just added to the internal callback scope to turn the idle off until it's done the scope.
Okay,
Yeah, so,
sounds quite reasonable.
yeah. So the reason it was removed before is because like there's a whole bunch of stuff that is like clearly not idle activity that would be attributed as idle activity, and like that's just clearly wrong. With this, we would still have like anything that doesn't actually use make callback would be attributed as idle, which is not ideal, but anything that doesn't use make callback is already broken for async hooks as well. So like we already kind of consider that stuff to be broken anyway and should really just be fixed.
And that would be like native modules versus anything else, right?
Yeah, like some older native modules might not report idle time correctly, which I don't think is a huge deal. I think it's better to have most stuff actually reporting idle than nothing reporting idle. That just looks clearly wrong.
Right. So right now, and yeah, that's a good point. Is so like those ones will report. So older native modules report more idle or less idle.
So native modules would essentially report the same as they already do. It'd just look like idle time, like it always has. Or no, it would become idle time now. Before it would have looked like basically the process is never idle.
Right.
But now it will look like has a bunch of idle around when the event loop is waiting for stuff. But anything that does V8 function call directly without make callback, it's not going to know that it's entered into JavaScript there.
Right.
It's
Okay.
just going to think it's still idle.
I'm just wondering if there is a mechanism for us to validate the idleness externally to the Node.js process, such as any operating system command, such as time or things like that, through which we can actually see what is the idleness of the process as seen by the operating system. I mean, I'm just curious from a monitoring perspective.
I'm not really sure, but I don't know if that necessarily matters here, since like what the CPU profiler reports in the first place is not really a reflection of the entire process. It's a reflection of the context, or I guess the isolate. So like if you have multiple isolates, they're not gonna report each other's data anyway. So
Yeah. I guess what I'm saying is from the deployment, based on the deployment target, based on the workload, people might have different perception about idleness. And in one case, they would want to know exactly where the event loop is idle for in certain scenarios, so that they can adjust the workload to leverage that fact. Versus in some other scenarios, they would be interested to know when the process is idle, in which case they would want to devise some other strategy with respect to metering and things like that. So yeah, I guess it may be a different discussion altogether.
yeah, probably need a separate API for that, or like
Yeah.
V8 would need like a system-wide CPU profiler or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else on this item?
No, just mostly wanted to point out it exists to just get some reviewers to look at it and
Sure. Yeah.
make sure it's reasonable.
Thanks. So I guess that's pretty much we have on the agenda. Michael, last week we had, in the last instance, we had Richard.
Yep.
Who presented the idea of breaking down the diagnostic best practice documentation into fine-grained work items, or to see what is the gap with respect to the progress in the documentation, and see how can he, I wasn't sure the aspect was how can he contribute, or how can he make an assessment about what is the actual work required.
I think it was to start trying to get it moving forward, and to, like, he was going to try and pick up one or two of the sections to move it forward. So the first step was to kind of like break it down into like what the next steps would be from where we are.
Yeah.
And I'm just looking to see if he'd created those issues here, because I thought for some reason I thought he had.
I don't
the
see
breakdown.
any.
Right. Okay. Well, I'll follow up with him on that.
Sure.
Let's see.
Another question I had is around the user journey itself. According to my understanding, the user journey is complete, at least to its intended purpose at this point of time. We had covered all the identified user journeys at least once. So
Yeah. So go ahead.
yeah, so definitely the natural next step on that would be to convert those into the best practice documentation.
Yep.
So that way, that is well aligning with what Richard is going to look at.
Yeah, and if you have any cycles to look at that too, maybe you two could coordinate. Yeah, that's. I think he doesn't have all the context, right? So he'll need some help from us who were in those discussions to kind of help translate what was there into what we would write down.
Yeah, my idea was, I mean, when I originally tried to break down the best practice documentation into discrete items, we did not have the complete user journey document.
Yeah.
But whereas at this point we have it. So probably it's worthwhile instead of, or apart from looking at the current structure in the documentation folder and see what is in there and what is not in there. Apart from that, we can also look at the user journey document and see how we can truly translate that into the documentation. It may be, it may come out that it may be one and the same, but what I'm saying is we could actually baseline the user journey rather than the current skeleton or the current structure in the documentation folder.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess it's just figuring out what that is and then starting to fill it in, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So I'll follow up with Richard to see. For some reason I thought he'd created something, but I do agree I can't see it there, and it should be fairly new in the the list, right?
Yeah, it should appear on the top.
Yeah.
We don't see that.
Okay.
All right. So that's pretty much we have for today. Anybody else? Anything else we want to discuss?
I just did follow. He hasn't done it yet, I guess. So guess we should
Okay.
look for that and then go from there. Nothing else than that for me.
Okay. Then that's it for today.
Okay.
Let's regroup in 2 weeks' time.
Talk to
Thanks
everybody later.
everybody for joining, and talk to you later.